Hi everyone, good day to you all because you're joining from different continents and different time zones. Thank you for being with us today. And we welcome you to a wonderful presentation by Chef Durfee today. He is going to talk about how to grow your community, and in the process you'll also increase your sales and helping each other. So before that, I just want to take a minute because some of you are not familiar with Cocotown. I'm just going to take few minutes to share a small PowerPoint presentation. So bear with me. Yeah, I'm Andal Balu. I'm the vice president and co-founder of Cocotown. We make machines to make chocolate, and it's not just the machines. Our mission is to pioneering craft chocolate technology, and our vision to be the one-stop shop for all the chocopreneurs and also foodpreneurs, because our machines can be used for other gourmet foods also. So they can, our customers can make award-winning chocolates and gourmet foods. That's our vision. And then our parent company was started in 1992, and that's called Inno Concepts as for innovative ideas. And then in 2008, we had to pivot, and then we started Cocoa Town, and we always focused on sustainability in three areas: cocoa farming, customers, businesses, and the environment. And apart from the sustainability, we also focus on not just the equipment, but also education and exposure. So we are not here in the business to just sell machines. We are here to help people start their entrepreneurial journey. We call them chocopreneurs because they are doing the business in chocolate. And then we also help them to grow with the bigger equipment and education for different topics, and also exposure. For example, in Paris, if any of you want to exhibit, we share our booth at a fraction of the cost that we'll be paying if you have your own booth, and you get to meet the other people in the community because that's the biggest chocolate festival. So you can talk to us after the webinar, or you can send us an email. And we also have the Chocopreneur Showcase, and we can showcase you on our social media. And then we have been fortunate to enable and accelerate the bean to bar craft chocolate movement because we created the first bigger machine to grow into the commercial line, not just doing as a hobby or a home business. And our machines have low initial investment and minimal footprint, and you just need a basic knowledge or skills. And then even the farmers can add more value for the beans. Instead of selling as a commodity, they can sell as nibs or liquor, as a value, or even chocolate as a value-added product. And then we have the price transparency and consistent pricing structure. And we also provide financial assistance. So, for example, within US or Canada, people can lease our equipment. We connect you with the leasing companies. And for the people outside US, we work with the Exim Bank, and they help you to pay in 3 installments. So all those information you can talk to us later or email us. And then we are always innovative. We have the patterns for our machines, and we always continuously improve our machines, because when we started, 5 people were making for hobby. Then slowly the grew. When more people use, we know how each person is using differently, and we make it simple and easier for everyone to use. And also, when we make the improvement, it's backward compatible. So that means it's not like iPhone. When the new version comes, the old phone is not useful anymore. You have to buy a new phone. In ours, you just buy the new improvement or the new part or new accessory and use it with the existing machine with the minimum changes. And we have the machines to match your budget and journey. If you're a starter, or if you're doing as a hobby, or you are a multinational company, we have the machines from half a kilo to 90 kilo per batch of chocolates. And this is our small timeline. We started in 1992, and then 1990, we took 2 years to figure out which machines we are going to sell because we wanted to be innovative. And then in 2006, we started selling melanges. In 2007, we had the commercial grinders. And then in 2009, we registered the Cocoa Town to separate the Indian business we have and this one. And then we came up with the roaster, cracker, and we had the Melanger patent. And we also in 2014 we had the B2B workshops. And then we introduced Winnover, and now we have the full suite of machines. And in 2020, again, we had to pivot during the pandemic because people needed some hope and they needed to do something because they were all stuck at home. So we started this. And thanks to people like Stephen Duffy and others who are willing to share their knowledge free of cost. So we can bring this free to anybody in the cocoa value chain. We are not restricting it to only our customers. Anybody can join this. And if you cannot attend in person, not a problem. We send a recorded video later. So let your friends know that they can join, and also they can watch the earlier videos also. And always we want to finish with the Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. That literally translates as may all beings everywhere in the universe be happy and free. And may the thoughts and words and actions of my own life contribute in some way to the happiness and freedom for all. And here is our contact information. We are available to talk to you on the phone and WhatsApp and email, Skype. We have the Zoom calls, everything, anything you want, we are here to talk to you. And before I hand over this, platform to Teresa, I just want to make one announcement. I don't know how many of you know Mr. Ed Seguin. He used to work for Mars, and then he's the one who was he played a major role in Cacao of Excellence. So he was testing the samples and he came with the protocols. And, he's a good friend for us. He's our mentor. And it's very sad. He's in a very critical position right now. And, people are saying goodbye to him. So if you know Ed, or if you care about Ed, you can send a message. We can share that, his wife's email. So you can send the email to her and then she will read it to him. And we just want to take a moment to just pray for his health and peace for his family. So just 1 minute, please. Okay, Teresa, you can take over.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Balu, for that. Okay, well, welcome everyone. I'm charged with doing a little bit of housekeeping. So as Mrs. Balu mentioned, this is a recorded session. So you'll receive a link to view the recording at a later date. So you don't have to worry about taking notes, or if you missed something, you will be able to watch it again at your leisure. What I would also like to do is let you know that we would appreciate if, as your questions come up, you'll put them in the chat. That will give us a written record of the questions, as well allow us to interject while Chef is speaking and get your questions answered in real time, or maybe they'll be answered at the end, but we'll be able to see them. So as your questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat. I have a feeling this is going to be a bit of an interactive session. So as your questions come up, don't be shy. Please feel free to put them in the chat. I think that's it with the housekeeping. So what I'd like to do is say, welcome, Chef, to our Empowering Chocolapreneurs webinar series. We greatly appreciate you getting up early for us and sharing your experience and knowledge with our audience. So I usually start with a quick question. Can you share with us a little bit about where your relationship with cacao or your chocolate journey began?
Well, there's multiple answers to that question. I think I like to eat, and I've always been a chocolate fan. I like to cook, and I learned how to how to cook from I became interested in cooking at an early age. Let's just put it that way. And but I really became attracted to chocolate specifically after taking a class. I took a class in New York City at Peter Kump School with Nick Malgeri, and he taught just basic. It was just 2 days of tempering and ganache making, and being able to make chocolate bonbons in a mold. And living in New York at that time, I had access to like JB Prince, and so I could just run down the street, buy the molds myself, and actually start production. I was working in a restaurant at that time and had access to chocolate, but it all of a sudden became much more than just an ingredient in going into my cakes and things like that. And I think gave me sort of a leg up in terms of what skills I had to offer as far as like employable skills. Like I know how to temper, and I know how to make ganache, and I can make beautiful bonbons. And that just kind of led to other things along the way.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think if my journey had started with tempering, I would have run away screaming. All right, wonderful. Well, with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank
I
you.
see we have a couple of Dans and an Ann and a Jay, and there's at least 5 people who are here today. So that's great. As mentioned, I would welcome for this to be an interactive presentation. I'll just sort of introduce myself and tell a little bit about myself and about Dandelion Chocolate, and then what it is that my role is in the company here, and then hope that is perhaps inspirational or provide some guidance for other folks. And if anybody has questions and they want to pose those questions, and that's how I like a class to run generally. So really quick, my name is Stephen Durfee. I'm a chef. I've spent my adult life as a chef and a restaurant pastry chef, particularly. I live in Napa Valley in California, which is in the Bay Area of San Francisco. But I'm actually originally from the East Coast in New York. And as I already mentioned, I lived in New York City for a while, and I had an early relationship with food and cooking that started off as a high school summer job, working in a restaurant as a dishwasher. And although I didn't really plan on a career as a chef, I enjoyed the experience of working in a restaurant and the excitement and those types of things. And it actually propelled me into a career where I moved to New York City and got involved in restaurants and sort of fell in love with the culture, and eventually migrated to from New York to the West Coast, and very specifically, not just accidentally, but to the French Laundry restaurant in 1994. So as part of the opening team for that restaurant, there was just a handful of people. There was just a few cooks in the kitchen when the restaurant first opened. And although I did multiple jobs there and worked multiple stations over the years, I was the pastry chef for that restaurant for many years, and certainly associated with that, and had the most impact as that. And that job led me then to be able to take on a role as an instructor at the Culinary Institute of America's West Coast campus in Napa Valley, where I taught, amongst other things, restaurant production desserts and classical cakes, and also chocolates and confections. And so tagging on to what we just mentioned a minute ago, I was interested in confectionery and chocolate bonbons and truffles and things of that nature. As a teacher at the school, it also gave me a little bit more time than I used to have working in a restaurant, that I could pursue other interests. And specifically, what I discovered was competition. And so I got involved in cooking competitions that were generally sponsored by chocolate companies. So whether it was the World Chocolate Masters or the National Pastry Team Championships, or ultimately the World Cup, the Coupe du Monde, there is usually a relationship with a chocolate company. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to visit laboratory at, say, for example, at Valrhona in France, and go to some of the Cocoberry Callebaut schools in Chicago and Montreal and New York, and just sort of immerse myself in chocolate as I learned how to do like centerpieces and whatnot. So it's interesting. My personal field of chocolate is that I went from being a chef to being a confectioner, and that's two different groups of people. There are people who work as restaurant chefs, and there's people who work as chocolate confectioners and maybe open a chocolate shop. And then there's a different group of people who work who participate in competitions. And so my network of people involved with chocolate continued to grow. And then as a teacher, ultimately, I became really interested in chocolate because not only was it an ingredient in cakes, and not only was it a skill that we taught in terms of confectionery, but it was also an opportunity to meet people who were involved on the making level. And so I just literally discovered dandelion chocolate when bringing my students from culinary school on a field trip to San Francisco. And we just sort of accidentally happened past the dandelion factory in the heart of the Mission in San Francisco, and and I thought it was really interesting. And I'll explain a little bit more about dandelion and what dandelion's about in a second. I'll explain it really right now. Dandelion's story, we're chocolate makers. And since the company was founded in 2012, the mission for the business has been to make 2-ingredient chocolate. So all the chocolate that we make here at Dandelion is cocoa beans and sugar based on a 70% model. I grabbed a couple of pretty chocolate bars to share off with folks, just so you can see. We identify on the label our business name, and it says 70%, and it has the name of our partners that we're working with, which are various cocoa bean fermenteries, whether it's in Colombia or in Dominican or in Tanzania. And all of the bars are based on the same formula of 70%. So 70 parts of cocoa beans and 30 parts of sugar. And it's been that way since the get-go. And so it's not couverture, there's not added cocoa butter, there is no vanilla, there's no lecithin, it's just cocoa beans and sugar based on a 70% model. And so when we are introducing our chocolate to guests, it's really, it's fun because we are able to highlight the fact that cocoa beans from different regions have their own intrinsic properties and flavors. And so rather than, we don't make milk chocolate, we don't make bars with inclusions, there are no flavorings, it's only 70% 2-ingredient dark chocolate. And so the people's entire attention, once they come into the factory, or once they are introduced to the chocolate as a product, is really focused on the importance of the cocoa beans themselves and how they're processed first at their place of origin, and then how they're processed in the factory. I took a chocolate making course. I discovered Dandelion, as I mentioned, just kind of by accident, walking down the street. They were at a small factory, which is, I'm coming to you right now from the main Dandelion factory, which is in Potrero Hill area, but it's about a 15-minute walk to Valencia Street, to the original Dandelion shop. I was fortunate to take a chocolate making class that they were offering, and found it so accessible, so easy to understand the process of grinding up cocoa beans and adding sugar, that I was able to rather quickly introduce that to my own program at the culinary school, and sort of share with students in culinary school, like, this is how chocolate is made. And so that just sort of, again, propelled you into a new world of people. So not just confectioners and chefs and competitors, but also chocolate makers. And when you are able to travel and meet other chocolate makers and learn from them, it just gives you so much more appreciation and can develop your broader knowledge of the topic. I've been teaching chocolate making then for several years at the culinary school, and as a part of a program, I was able to travel to a number of places of origin to see where cacao grows, and very specifically to Tanzania. And then a couple of times to Ecuador, but then also I went to India, and one of those courses, Bean to Bar workshops, I got to lead back in 2017 in Coimbatore with Balu and the rest in that group, and be able to explain not just how chocolate is made, but how the importance of having quality tools in order to get the job done. Whether you're working on a small scale or a large scale, most craft chocolate starts off with grinders, very much like the ones that I see on my screen right now. What we refer to as stone wheel grinders or melangers, which in fact have their initial purpose as being what we refer to as wet grinders. They're a commonly found tool in people's home kitchens in the south of India. So whether it is a bean cracker or a grinder or a winnowing machine, I taught the classes based on the most elementary technology first, showing people how to roast cocoa beans in a saute pan over a flame, and crack them with like a heavy pot or a rolling pin, and then grind them on a stone metate, and then move forward from there. I find just sort of that sort of understanding to give so much more depth and appreciation to the topic. I left the culinary school about 3 years ago, and although I live in Napa, which is a ways away from San Francisco, I commute. I joined the team here at Dandelion about 2.5 years ago, and I make a daily commute into the city. And here I head up, and my title is actually Director of Curriculum for Dandelion. So I have a broad spectrum of programming that is all based on the idea of what we refer to as chocolate experiences, which is like introducing guests into the factory. When people walk in the door, we have, besides a factory, we have a retail shop that is very lovely and carefully appointed, and a cafe where you can get hot chocolate and coffee focused drinks, and cacao smoothies, and a beautiful dining room that has its own independent menu. So I work in a beautiful building that is brick and exposed brick and I-beams and glass, and it has a sort of an industrial chic look to it. It's as far as places to go, it's inspirational. You can see right behind me a little bit of chocolate art on the walls, which are in fact, they're like 8 feet tall and 3 feet wide chocolate bars that are just wall hangings. So people come to Dandelion in the first place for a hot chocolate drink, and to sit in the cafe and to meet with their friends and sit in our dining room and work on their laptops and things like that. And then we try to encourage them to come back. And the way that we encourage them to come back is through this variety of programming that starts off with tours of the factory. And I see, Daniel, that you asked a question, and I'm going to get to that. So thank you very much. And anybody else who has a question, please throw it into the chat. we do factory tours here every day. And a factory tour is an hour-long explanation of the process of how we make chocolate here at Dandelion. It starts off with tasting different chocolates side by side, just to establish, oh, wow, chocolate with cocoa beans from different origins taste different. And again, all of our chocolate is 70% single origin. And so it's really quite easy to detect the different tasting notes. And then we'll go through an explanation in every tour that explains the process from not just bean to bar, but even before there. So we have fresh cacao pods that we have shipped to our factory twice a week. And so a tour actually, in addition to tasting chocolate, opening up a couple of bars and sharing chocolate samples with guests, also includes tasting roasted beans. We're operating during the day, so there are certain times when we're in the middle of a roasting process, but it smells good in the factory all the time. It also involves opening up a fresh cacao pod and introducing to people to, wow, this is the raw material where chocolate starts from. People taste that cacao fruit and perhaps will chew through a rather bitter and unpleasant seed, or sometimes kind of spit that out. But they taste the fresh fruit and they learn, wow, chocolate starts off as cocoa beans. They're not even beans; they're like seeds. And so we explain that like right from the get-go, and we'll go through the ideas of the steps along the way. So yes, we discuss fermentation. Dandelion wrote a book. And so the Making Chocolate book, I actually use as a textbook in my class at the culinary school, because part of it is the story of Dandelion. Part of it is the story of how do you make chocolate and how do you start up a small business in chocolate making based on our experience. And part of it is recipes that were developed by our pastry chef. We taste chocolate, we walk through the factory, we show off the various steps along the way, we hand out sort of collateral that explains this is the process by which we turn cocoa beans into chocolate. We have photographs on an iPad that will show, here's a tree, here's a tree flowering, here's a tree with cacao pods ready to be harvested. And then it shows off different steps along the way of fermentation and drying. And moreover, when we talk of a bar like our Coco Camili Tanzania origin bar, like I went to Coco Camili in Tanzania, we actually lead origin tours that we offer to guests as a way to say, come with us on a trip to Tanzania, or come with us on a trip to Zorzal in the Dominican Republic, and learn where these cocoa beans come from in the first place and meet the people behind you. I'll tell you, I'm asked 3-4 times a day, 5 days a week, what's your favorite of the chocolates we have? And generally, I feel like my appreciation for the chocolate can be so much more than what's like my favorite flavor or what have you. But it's often like because of a relationship, a tangible relationship that you make with somebody at the source. So when you hear the story about Zorzal and where their cocoa beans come from and who are the people farming them, the chocolate tastes so much better just because of that that relationship that you develop. We do factory tours that take about an hour to walk through the factory, explaining all the steps of the way. We taste chocolate in various forms, whether it's in a bar or right out of the melanger, tasting right out of the melanger. Taste these cocoa beans, and what do you notice in terms of flavor, showing packaging, like all the steps of walking through the factory. It's an hour-long experience, and we charge $20 for people to come. But that's just the start. And anybody who walks through the factory can see that process of chocolate making. And then depending on their level of interest, we have so much more programming in terms of things that we're offering to guests. Daniel, we wrap our chocolate in paper, and the paper is handmade paper. It's beautiful. I can promise you it is an attractive chocolate. You might want to see the actual bar, and so we have bars that are opened up. But you know, one of the worst things for chocolate is to expose it to light. And so, your best case scenario, our bars are not just wrapped in paper, but they're also wrapped in gold foil. I'll give you an unwrapping experience right now. So we have this beautiful crafted paper. On the bar, it actually shows the name of, in this instance, Pablo, our senior chocolate maker, who is responsible for determining the roast profile for that chocolate. Each one of our origin bars is roasted independently. They have their own roasting time and temperature. And so we just determine that through a lot of trial to kind of hone in on what's the best iteration. They're not only wrapped in paper, but they're also wrapped in gold foil, and that's protective. So they look beautiful. They're giftable, and the foil is going to protect them from moisture loss and also from odors. So in your best case scenario, you really want to keep the chocolate away from the light. So that's why we wrap them that way. But I agree that it's beautiful to see the bar and to see the gloss, but just something to consider. We have so what I really wanted to mention, I mean, and chat about were some of the things that we're doing here. And admittedly, it's a big company. I've had 30 years of experience as a chef, and my particular job is to involves many different things here, but having experience like cooking and in confectionery and teaching and et cetera means that we can offer some different programming. So thinking about how who you are and what your opportunities might be, I'll just share some of what we do here to try to just get guests to have repeat visits to the factory and provide them with a great memory of what it means when you come to Dandelion. It's not just you're coming here to buy a chocolate bar or just coming here to buy a coffee, but you're coming here to learn. You're coming here to learn about the chocolate making process and perhaps something that you didn't know before, and to taste things. And then we would hope to become like a lifelong customer who wants to continue learning more things. So we have courses that are skills related. So I have a kitchen. I'm sitting right now in a meeting space, but I have a small kitchen that's right next to here with just marble tables. It's not a bakery, and so I don't really have ovens and whatnot, but I do have marble tables for people to work at. And so among the classes that we teach, and I'm going to be doing later on today, we have a chocolate making class. That's the foundation class where people come in, taste through a variety of already roasted and cracked cocoa nibs, depending on their origin, and then walk into our kitchen space. And then this is a class that will have maybe 10 or 12 people in it on a Saturday. They will choose what their favorite cocoa nib origin based on what they taste, and then they're welcome to go into the kitchen. It's a 4-hour class where we produce our own chocolate based on a 70% model, and then we usually encourage people actually in that class to mix and match, and they can create their own sort of blend of cocoa beans from, we'll usually present about 5 different origin nibs. It's a class that we charge $160 for, and then guests will come in and have a chance to make their own bar, taste each other's, and then take home a kilo of chocolate at the end of the day. That's a class that we've been doing for years and years. And it gets people involved in the process, and then they can see how chocolate is made, and it's fun. That's just one of our skills-based classes. So we also, and I'll be doing this later on today, teach the basic skill of tempering. And so I mentioned that earlier on. To me, that was a real kind of a springboard into into chocolate as a career is that I learned how to temper chocolate and take some of the mystery out of it. And so we'll teach chocolate, how to temper chocolate by a couple of different methods. And then people can make bars and they take home a beautiful product at the end of the day. And then we also make little molded mendiant with garnished with dried fruit and nuts. And so it allows people to quickly put into play the skill that they learned and have a product to take home. We teach a truffle making class, and so when in a truffle making class, and Anne, I can see your question right there, and I'll mention that we'll teach a truffle making class in an hour. And so the way that we do that is to kind of plan ahead, almost like when you're thinking about a TV. So yeah, when we make chocolate in a class period, admittedly, it's not, I mean, you can grind up cocoa beans in a melanger so that they are pasty in about 45 minutes. We blow warm air into it using a hot air gun. I start by actually running cocoa nibs through a peanut butter grinder that will cut off about an hour of grinding time. And then we'll take the pre-ground nibs into a melanger. We blow in warm air and we pre-refine the sugar. And so I'll actually put sugar into a grinder and pre-refine the sugar for about 30 minutes. So that we cut off, I mean, we're, you know, kind of cutting off some time to take some shortcuts. So then after you have cocoa beans that are partially refined in a peanut butter grinder, then we'll transfer those into the melanger. And so in a 3.5 hour class period, of course, your chocolate's not fully refined, but it gives you a sense of the process about how you would, how chocolate is made. And people go home with chocolate then that is actually in pretty nice condition for whether they're going to use it for a baking application or to make hot chocolate or something of that nature. So obviously it's not going to be as smooth as if we ran it overnight, but the nature of the class is that people are curious about how chocolate is made. And so you get the sense of what it is and you go home with a delicious product that you made yourself. We have a class that teaches the skills of tempering and a chocolate truffle making class that is wildly popular. And we make hand rolled truffles. And guests will come in. I show how to make a properly emulsified ganache, and then we take ganache that I have made for them earlier in the day, and they will shape that into truffles. So you walk out of here with a couple of dozen chocolate truffle pieces and the ganache that you made yourself, so that you can go home and practice that skill and try it again the following day with a different origin of chocolate. And so everything is based on all the things are based on the idea of we want people to be to have success, to walk out of the class in whatever the time period is with something that's delicious and beautiful and carefully packaged and leaves you with a great sort of memory and experience about I had fun when I was at Dandelion and I left with something that was tasty and delicious. We've done some cake classes where we show people skills about this is how you hold offset spatula. This is how you spread icing onto a cake using a turntable. This is how you make, for example, candied cocoa nibs that you can use as a decor. So those are just some of the things that we're doing that get people involved in a making process. I have the space and I have the interested guests who come so that we can run programming 5 days a week. But that doesn't mean that it has to be 5 days a week because, for example, over the summer, we ran a series of events just to bring people into the factory for some activity. And so one of the activities is showing a movie. So this has been something that we've done many times before. And we will, we have at the holiday time at Christmas, we turn the chocolate factory over and build a dining room and collaborate with Bay Area chefs to create a dinner that they serve in the chocolate factory. We sell spots at the dinner to guests through our website, and we have chefs collaborate on a 4-course dinner that includes chocolate in every course. And of course, they use our chocolate for making their meal. We've done variations of that by having like a summer brunch where we will invite bakers from the area to come and produce something that they would then serve at the factory. So it's great because it exposes the chefs to a new audience and helps to bring in new people to the factory. I do cooking demonstrations. And so on Thursday evenings, we will seat guests in our dining room, and I'd bring in a table and an induction burner. And the other evening, we just showed folks, this is how we make crepes. And so we walked through a recipe and showed something as simple as making chocolate crepes, and then made some various toppings that we could serve with those crepes. I choose different recipes all the time. Sometimes they're more elaborate. And so we'll show the various steps of making a cake, and you have to think of it, it's like a TV show, where you will, if you're making a cake, then you'll show mixing the cake and putting it in the oven, and then you have a cake that's already made, and then another cake that's made that's got the toppings on it, and then we share that finished dessert with the guests. So over the course of an hour, we can see all the various steps. We have some of our classes are purely social. And so by that, I mean, it's just like, let's learn how to taste chocolate. And in those classes, it sometimes is just tasting our chocolate. So we're saying, let's taste through a couple of different origins and kind of talk about what does it mean to taste chocolate, and what do we notice as far as tasting notes go. But then we also share other people's chocolates in terms of craft. I was just at the Northwest Chocolate Festival last weekend in Seattle, and met with other craft chocolate makers, and we'll bring home things that we don't make. Like, for example, we don't make milk chocolate, but other craft chocolate makers do. And so it's fun to kind of sit down and say, well, here is Dandelion's chocolate made from these cocoa beans from Tanzania. But if we get this other maker's bar using the exact same cocoa beans, it doesn't necessarily mean that that our bars are going to taste like their bars, because depending on how we roast and how we process, I think it's really fascinating to say, chocolate can, there's many different things that will impact the flavor of your finished bar. And so, again, you just engage with the guests and say, it doesn't, we can, even though we're using the same cocoa beans, there's something new to taste. And so some of our classes will show this is what we're making, and some will kind of say, this is what other people are making. We taste through a variety of things just to bring, to shed more light on the industry, kind of in general. So whether it's through tours, I'm looking at my list here of, here are some of the things that I wanted to mention. The last thing, I'm sorry, one more thing is
Okay.
the pairings. Yeah. And so some of the things, like I take care of myself, but many of the things we do with collaborators. And so there's a series of events that are pairings. And so that might be pairing chocolate with coffee. And so I have a friend who has a coffee business, and let's say I made a friend who has a coffee business whose coffee business is very, very similar to our chocolate, in that they source single origin coffees and then roast them. And then we sat down and we tasted through our coffee, or our chocolate and their coffee, and found things that we thought were a good match, and then talk about why they're a good match, and then invite other people to come and experience that with us. And we've done the same thing very successfully with tea, chocolate and tea, chocolate and whiskey, chocolate and tequila, chocolate and cheese, chocolate and beer, and go through through various things where we actually work with another a partner, a collaborator, so that we can both talk about the things that we love, and then how and that we're knowledgeable on, and then show how certain things go together. So those are some ideas, and I know that we're kind of running into time, and so I'll say, yeah, we can certainly ask and answer some questions.
Hi, yeah. So Daniel wants to know about, he's selling at festivals and markets. So how do you create a memorable tasting experience of your single origin chocolates, sort of on that scale? Do you have
Yeah.
some ideas that you can share?
Yeah, so I was just at a festival at Northwest, and so we had a team of 6 people who were there at the Dandelion booth, which is a lot of people, admittedly, and so there were many others who had one or two. So so the first thing is you want to make your booth look beautiful, and people come to your booth not just because you have a table and a tablecloth, but we cover it with things that will attract people's attention. So at our booth, besides a tablecloth, we had a vase of flowers. We have roasted cocoa beans so that people can come and see and break open roasted cocoa beans and take the skin off them and taste a bean. We have our bars wrapped up in their packaging. We also had a melanger. Actually, we had 3 melangers running so that people could taste chocolate right straight out of the melanger. I had 3 of them side by side. We have little paper tasting spoons. I dip in and give people a taste of them. And if they have a taste, and we talk about, what do you notice about this? What do you notice about this? Which one is your favorite? Good. Which one do you want to buy? And so, we'll sample. We have broken samples. So our bars break up into 18 squares, but we cut those 18 squares into quarters. So 18, 37, 72 pieces. They're little tiny little bites in a dish, and we'll have like tongs, and people will help themselves to those as the tongs. So obviously you have to spend something in order to make something, and that is how we sample out. But the number one thing is that you want to make people want to come to your booth in the first place, because there's happy people there who are smiling, and it looks inviting, and it looks more interesting than it would have if it was just like a bare booth.